In a dying city where neon lights flicker like broken memories and silence haunts every alley, a lone soldier walks through the ruins of war, not to fight, but to search. The rain falls steadily, painting the streets with reflections of a world that once thrived. Amidst this cold decay, he finds something unexpected. Not an enemy, not a threat, but her. She sits alone, skin glowing, with an eerie blue shimmer, like stardust trapped in human form. Her eyes speak a language no translator can decode, a language of loss, survival, and centuries of exile. He doesn't raise his weapon. Instead, he kneels. From the pouch on his side, he takes out a simple can, a relic of the old world, maybe the last of its kind. No words are spoken. He offers it to her. She looks at it, then at him. In that moment, one drink, two broken souls, no sides left to choose, something shifts. Enemies become strangers. Strangers become human. And the war, if only for a second, seems far away. The world ended not with a bang, but with silence, a slow unraveling of truth, trust, and time. Cities once full of light now rot in the dark. Towering steel giants rust under the weight of neon signs that still blink out hollow messages. Hope, future, Natick. But no one listens anymore. The streets are abandoned, soaked in rain that never stops, as if the skies themselves weep for what's been lost. He moves through this forgotten place like a shadow, armored, scarred, eyes alert, a soldier built for survival, programmed by duty, haunted by choices. But today, he's not following orders. Today, he's following instinct. Down a narrow alley, choked with fog and the hum of broken tech, he sees her. Not a monster, not a machine, a girl, alien in form, but strangely familiar. Her body glows faintly, like the last ember of a dying star. She sits on the wet ground, curled up, not in defense, but exhaustion. A being of power, now powerless. They don't speak. What would they say? He kneels slowly, aware of the thousand ways this could go wrong. His hand moves to his belt, not to draw a weapon, but to offer something. A can. Something simple. Something human. She hesitates, then takes it. In that shared silence, something happens. Not loud, not visible, but real. Two lives touch. Not through language or logic, but through empathy. In a world broken by war and greed, maybe this is the only thing that still matters. The choice to care. Not for species, not for survival, but for someone else. Someone unexpected. The rain never stopped in Neon. 6. They said it used to be a city of light. Towering glass spires, flying transit lines, streets lined with pulse screens that danced to every footstep. But that was before the war, before the treaties shattered like broken circuits, and humanity made first contact with something they didn't understand. Now it's just silence and static. Rain pours endlessly from the gray, dying sky, washing over twisted steel, shattered screens, and rusted bones of what once was. The ground is slick with neon reflections, pink, green, and blue shimmering in the puddles like ghosts. Above, signs still blink out promises from a dead age, but no one's watching anymore. The only sound is the quiet crunch of boots on wet concrete. A lone soldier walks the alley, head low, rifle across his back, armor worn and faded. His helmet is off. He stopped caring about protocols long ago. His face is tired, the kind of tired that no rest can fix. His name, not important anymore. Not here. People stopped using names when their flags stopped matching. He scans the alley with cold eyes, trained by years of conflict, conditioned by loss. Not much moves in this sector now. No drones, no patrols. Just wind, neon, and ghosts. He pauses. Something's not right. Ahead, through the mist, a figure sits curled against the wall. At first, he thinks it's just another corpse. There are many of them here, collapsed in alleys, forgotten under debris, nameless. But this one is glowing, faintly, blue. The soldier's hand moves instinctively to his sidearm. Slow, silent, then stops. He squints through the downpour. The figure is humanoid, but not human. Her skin glows like soft bioluminescence, pulsing gently with breath. White hair cascades around her shoulders, soaked and clinging like silk threads. She doesn't move. She just sits. Not in fear, not in defense. Just stillness, as if she's been waiting. A memory flashes, not his own, but from the war. Images of blue-skinned beings with eyes like galaxies, powers that bent gravity, voices that echoed inside your head. The Veari. She is one of them. His breath slows. His fingers twitch, but stay steady. Protocol would demand immediate engagement. Capture or eliminate. No questions. But something in her posture pulls him back. She isn't attacking, isn't running. She looks exhausted. Their eyes meet. For a second, everything around them disappears. The rain, the lights, the pain of two collapsing worlds. It's just them, staring, studying, existing. He doesn't know why he kneels. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's the silence. Or maybe it's the fact that in all his years of killing, this is the first time one of them hasn't fought back. He unclips the pouch on his belt, pulls out a small, dented can. A drink. Basic rations, carbonated, chemically preserved. Useless in war, sacred in survival. The last one he has. He holds it out, wordless. She watches, eyes glowing faintly, suspicious, unsure, but not hostile. Her thin fingers reach out slowly, brushing his calloused hand as she takes it. The moment is microscopic, but for him, it feels like eternity. The rain falls harder. Somewhere far off, a drone buzzes and dies. A light flickers, then vanishes. And in that broken alley, a soldier and an alien sit in silence, strangers from opposite sides of a forgotten war. No gunfire, no orders, no mission, just a quiet offering. As the camera pulls back, we see the alley swallowed again by the city's cold embrace. Neon signs blinking their lies, puddles reflecting broken lights, and two silhouettes beneath the rain. For the first time in years, the soldier feels something stir deep inside. Not anger, not fear, not command, but choice. The can rested lightly in her hands, an object so ordinary, yet in this moment it felt like a gift from another universe. She stared at it as if she didn't recognize what it was, not fully. Her fingers ran along its scratched metallic surface, feeling every dent, every memory imprinted into its shell. She didn't open it, not yet. Her attention shifted back to him. He was still there, kneeling, waiting. The soldier kept his posture neutral, hands visible, body low, ready to react, but not provoke. He had been trained for thousands of threat scenarios. This wasn't any of them. No one ever wrote protocols for what to do when your enemy looks lost and tired. Up close, he could see more now. Her eyes weren't just glowing. They shimmered, like stars caught under glass. There was intelligence there. Pain, too. Not the animal kind that lashes out. The kind that waits, endures, hides. Her clothes were torn and soaked. Strange materials that looked like liquid fabric and crystal mesh, woven in ways he couldn't explain. One shoulder had a glowing fracture, as if her skin itself had cracked like glass. A slow pulse of blue light leaked through it, fading in rhythm with her breath. She was wounded, weak, but not broken. Not yet. He spoke, finally. "Can you understand me?" The words were soft, cautious, like someone speaking to a child who might disappear at any moment. She blinked. Slowly. No response. Her expression didn't change. "I'm not here to fight," he added. Still nothing. He sighed, sitting down against the opposite wall, armor clinking against the wet concrete. The steam rising from the puddles caught the lights of the alley, wrapping them both in a strange kind of glow, cold and warm all at once. For a long moment, they simply sat, breathing, listening. Eventually, her hand moved. The can hissed open. It was such a small sound, but in the quiet of the alley, it felt deafening. She brought it to her lips and sipped slowly, cautiously. Her throat moved as she swallowed. Then her eyes met his again, and for the first time, she spoke. Not in words. Her voice echoed directly into his mind, a soft, melodic vibration, like wind through glass. Why? It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't defensive. Just confusion. Curiosity. Honest. He stiffened. Not because it hurt. It didn't. But because it was real. The stories were true. The Veari didn't speak like humans. They resonated. Connected. He looked down, unsure how to answer. I don't know, he said. You looked like you needed it. She tilted her head, studying him. It wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. The tone, the hesitation, the flicker of something human still left behind the soldier's hardened face. You were told to kill us. He nodded once. No lies between them now. He said. I did. The silence after that was heavier than the rain. She closed her eyes and a tear, or something like it, slid down her cheek. It glowed as it fell, merging with the puddles at her feet. I did too, she answered. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. They sat like that. Two killers, no longer enemies, just survivors of their own decisions. Above them, a sign flickered back to life, casting the alley in rotating pulses of red and violet. The words meant nothing now. They were relics of a dream long dead. But down in the alley, the future was quietly rewriting itself. He reached into his pack, pulled out a cloth, and offered it. She looked at it strangely, then slowly accepted. It wasn't much, just a gesture, a human one. But in this place, such things had become rare, almost sacred. They didn't speak again for a while. Instead, they sat, one with glowing skin, carrying the weight of a dying species, one with scarred armor, carrying the guilt of orders followed too long, both sitting in the ruins of their decisions, both unsure of what came next. And for now, that was enough. The can was empty now, but its weight lingered in her hand, heavier than it should have been. She turned it slowly, watching the way the neon light played across the surface. A dented piece of metal filled with synthetic fizz. A human thing, yet somehow it meant everything. He hadn't looked away. The soldier watched her with a calm that was unfamiliar. Not tactical, not analytical, just present. For once, he wasn't reading threat vectors or measuring risk. He was simply looking at her, not as a target, but as a person, a being, a soul. Something inside her shifted. For cycles uncounted, the Veari had prepared for war. When first contact was made, her kind had warned the elders. Humans feared what they didn't understand. They would come with fire. They would not listen. And they were right. The fire came. She had fought, killed, watched her people vanish into data streams and ash. And now, in the ruins of everything, one of those enemies had shared the last drink he had. Not out of duty, not out of fear, just choice. She set the can down between them. The sound it made as it touched the concrete was barely audible, but final. Then she spoke again, not with words, but with presence, her voice threading softly into his mind. Why are you still here? He exhaled through his nose, looked up at the dripping wires above, thought for a long time. Because this place used to be my home, he said. Now it's just a memory. Maybe I'm waiting to forget it. Or maybe I'm hoping it'll remember me. You think a place can forgive? I don't know, but maybe people can. She was silent for a moment. Then, without warning, she lifted her hand and reached toward him. not to strike, but to offer. Her palm hovered, open and still, fingers gently curved upward, not glowing, not threatening, just offered. He hesitated. Touching a Veari wasn't just physical. Stories said they could read emotion, memory, even small pieces of the soul. His instinct screamed caution, but something deeper pulled him forward. He placed his gloved hand gently into hers. The connection was instant, not electric, not painful, but honest. For a second, his walls dropped. She saw flashes. A little boy running through these streets before the war. A mother's lullaby. The first time he killed, how his hands shook. The endless nights replaying screams behind closed eyelids. And she let him see her. A sister lost during the first orbital strike. Her own hand pressed against the glass of an escape pod. A field of glowing trees that no longer existed. The crushing guilt of survival. When they pulled away, neither spoke. They didn't need to. Something fundamental had shifted. Not peace, not trust, not yet, but something more dangerous, understanding. He removed a small thermal packet from his side pouch and tossed it to her. Food, he said simply. Not great, but edible. She caught it clumsily, inspected it with curious eyes. The material crinkled in her grip. She nodded, not in thanks exactly, but in recognition. An exchange. A second offering. Above them, a siren wailed in the distance. Deep and far, the kind that warned of approaching drones. The soldier tensed instinctively, but stayed seated. If they find us, he said, you should run. And if they find you? I stopped running a long time ago. She looked at him again, this time not with fear or curiosity, but with a strange kind of respect, not for who he was, but for who he might still become. The rain eased slightly, not enough to call it calm, but enough to feel like a pause in the chaos, a breath. She stood, slowly, legs shaking slightly, either from exhaustion or uncertainty. The can still sat between them, a symbol dented and empty, but powerful. He stood too. They faced each other now, fully upright, equal. No weapons raised. No orders followed. Just two survivors in a city that had forgotten how to live. She stepped forward and placed the empty can in his hand. Then she touched his chest, right over the emblem of his faded unit badge, and whispered into his mind one last time, "Your war is not your name." Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the steam and neon, leaving behind only the sound of her bare feet on wet concrete. And a soldier who no longer knew which side he belonged to. The alley was empty now. She had vanished into the mist like a breath in winter. No footsteps, no trail, no noise. Just the afterimage of her presence, still echoing in his chest. The can in his hand felt heavier than it should have. It wasn't just a can anymore. It was a turning point, a symbol of all the things he hadn't questioned, until now. He stood there unmoving for minutes, or maybe hours. Time had a way of bending in this city. Neon signs still flickered in loops, digital ghosts whispering promises to no one. Behind him, the lights blinked red. Threat detected. Unit out of position. He turned his communicator off. Not just silenced. Disabled. He no longer needed orders. He retraced his steps through the alley, past the same broken vending unit he had passed before, its interface cracked and flashing the word. Retry. The same word repeated in his mind, over and over. Retry. Retry. Rethink. Relearn. He stopped at the base of a rusted stairwell. Years ago, this led to a Veari resistance cell, or so they had been told. He remembered breaching this very structure, gun blazing, teammates shouting coordinates, the flash of plasma rounds. Inside, they found tech, holograms, some kind of organic databanks. No weapons, just recordings. At the time, Command said to destroy everything, so they did. But now, something compelled him to go back. Upstairs, the building moaned with age and water damage. He moved carefully, though part of him welcomed collapse. If the floor gave way, maybe he deserved it. But it held, just barely. He reached the top room, where the walls had once glowed with alien glyphs. Now they were faded, carved into dust. Yet in one corner, a projector still pulsed faintly. Alive, he crouched and activated it. The room filled with soft, blue light, and then with a voice. Not human, not hers, but familiar. If this reaches you, then we failed. A Veari elder, female, skin shimmering with age, eyes like orbiting moons. Her voice was calm, not desperate, resigned. We came not to conquer, but to connect. We offered energy, protection, knowledge. But what we didn't offer was fear. And so you feared us. Images flashed. Veari engineers helping rebuild fallen human satellites. Children of both species in shared learning zones. Unity, brief and bright, like lightning across a night sky. Then betrayal, missiles, raids. Misinformation spread like fire. They're infecting us. They're here to replace us. Protect the planet. So we retreated, the voice continued. We refused to fight, but survival is its own weapon. One last image froze on the screen. A Veari child, wide-eyed and unarmed, reaching out to a soldier, hand open. The same gesture he had seen hours ago. His breath caught. That soldier was him. Younger, hardened, trigger finger tense. The memory rushed back. He had fired, not fatally, but enough to send the child running. He had told himself it was justified. Orders were clear. No hesitation. But now, standing here, watching it play back, he saw it for what it was. Fear. Blind, trained fear. He dropped to his knees, not from exhaustion, but shame. Everything he'd built his identity around, loyalty, strength, control, suddenly felt like lies stitched over guilt. How many others like her had he ignored, dismissed, hurt? The silence in the room grew heavy. The projector faded out. Only one thing remained. A symbol etched into the wall. Part Veari, part human. A fusion of scripts. Underneath it, a line in both languages. Peace is not surrender. It is courage without the trigger. He stared at it until his eyes blurred. His earpiece suddenly crackled to life. Emergency override. A voice. Command. Recon Unit 3-1. You are off route and unresponsive. Respond or be marked compromised. Target sightings detected in Zone 12. Engage immediately. Zone 12. That was her direction. His finger hovered over the comm. 8,000 reflexes screamed at him to obey. He crushed it instead. The earpiece cracked under his boot like brittle bone. No more orders. He stood, alone, awakened, and for the first time in years, he knew what he had to do. Not because he was told, but because he chose. He turned toward Zone 12, eyes sharp. Not to capture, not to kill, but to find her again. Not as an enemy, not even as an ally, but as the only one left who knew the truth. Zone 12 wasn't far, not in distance, but in weight. Every step the soldier took through the ruined streets felt heavier than the last, not because of the rain-soaked armor or the cold biting through his sleeves, but because he knew this wasn't about orders anymore. This was about atonement. The city stretched around him like a graveyard of promises. Cracked roads, shattered drones, posters peeling off walls that once shouted hope. Unity through control. The fog had thickened, curling through steel and silence like a final breath. He turned a corner and saw her again. She stood in the open this time. No longer hiding, no longer retreating. Her back was to him. But she wasn't unaware. She knew he was coming. The soldier slowed, watching her. Her posture was different now. Not wounded, but ready, still tired, still fragile, but filled with something else. Resolve. He stepped forward, quiet but intentional. His rifle was gone, left behind. His hands were empty. She turned. Their eyes met once more. "You came," she said, not with surprise, not with sarcasm. Just calm certainty. He nodded. "I needed to." A long pause stretched between them. Not awkward, but sacred. The kind of silence that allows truth to breathe. "They will come for me," she said. "You know this." "I know. You're risking your life. I already gave it away. This is me taking it back." She stepped closer, her glowing eyes searching his face for something. Doubt, perhaps. Betrayal. But she found neither. "So what now?" she asked. "Will you stay?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at the horizon, what little of it remained through the fog and broken metal towers. Somewhere out there, others like him were still following orders, still chasing targets, still pretending the war hadn't ended years ago in spirit, even if the fighting hadn't. "I don't know what staying means," he admitted. "It means remembering," she said. "It means not running. From them. From yourself." The wind passed through them like a whisper from the old world. He thought of the boy he used to be, the one who ran through streets like these, laughing, before uniforms and bullets defined him. He thought of the faces he couldn't forget, the ones he had buried under duty. And then he thought of her. She hadn't asked for his protection. She hadn't begged for mercy. She had simply accepted his offering, not of a drink, but of humanity. He looked back at her. "Then I'll stay." A small smile touched the corner of her mouth. Not happiness, but acknowledgement. Respect. She held out her hand again. The same gesture from the alley, but now without hesitation. This time, he took it without fear. And for the first time, her voice didn't speak in his mind alone. It came from her lips, fragile and melodic, but real. "You are no longer a soldier." He didn't reply, because he knew. Somewhere in the distance, the low hum of an approaching aerial drone began to rise, growing louder, sweeping through the city like a mechanical hawk searching for movement. They both turned toward the sound. "They're close," she said. "I know. You could still leave." He shook his head. "Then we face them together," she whispered. He nodded. "Together." The two stepped into the shadow of an old transit arch, where once trains had flown overhead, carrying people who believed the world was safe. The sky above was choked with clouds, but beneath them, standing in unity, not as enemies, not as species, were two beings who had chosen peace in a place built for war. The drone passed overhead, its scanner lights flashing red, but didn't stop. Not yet. He looked at her. She looked at him. And they waited, not for survival, not for forgiveness, but for the world to catch up with what they had already discovered. That understanding was louder than commands. That silence could be an answer, and that sometimes the most powerful offering is the choice to stay.